My name is Rebecca Swanson, and this is Baker Pearce, and we're here on November 3rd, 2014 at Hillary House in Aurora. Jean has volunteered to share some of her stories in Aurora. How long have you lived in Aurora?
Well, we came to Aurora just after Hurricane Hazel in end of 1954, beginning of 55. And in fact, some of the little bridges around town that you see even here now were washed out at that point. And you hear about other things about Hurricane Hazel, but there was quite an effect on this town with on the small streams. But that's when we came, 55.
Can you tell me about the United Church Choir?
Yes, we moved in on a Thursday from Willowdale, and somebody had told the United Church organist, Mr. Harris, that I was a singer, and he was up there Thursday afternoon, and he had me at choir practice Thursday night. So I couldn't wait long. They had me in the church choir that Sunday. So, and I was there until Mr. Harris left and retired. I sang in the United Church Choir.
Do you have a favorite memory of choir?
Pardon?
Do you have a favorite memory of being in choir?
Oh, I don't know about favorite memory. I just enjoyed the singing. We used to do some very nice, I thought they were nice things, and Christmas cantata and all sorts of, I can't give you a specific thing of it, but it was just an interesting thing. And it was nice for a town like this to have a choir like that.
Can you tell me about the Aurora banner?
Tell you about the Aurora banner. Well, I'd been working at the Barrie Examiner as a teenager when I grew up in Barrie, and when I came here, the fellow from Barrie knew the people here, and they got me when they needed somebody in the office. They got me into the Aurora banner doing the office work. I did that for several years, and but when the ownership changed, I still kept doing it, and I've forgotten which year I became publisher. 1979, 80, somewhere in there. And I stayed there till I retired in late 70s. I've forgotten exactly what dates they were, but.
Can you tell me about raising your family in Aurora?
Well, Judy's talked about one episode. We lived on Temperance Street, and it was sort of a fun street to live on, and George Street School. The year we came here, Janet, our older daughter, was in the first class in George Street School. It was just brand new, and they had classes at Wells Street for a month or two until the school was finished, and then they moved over to George Street School. And raising a family in Aurora. Well, it was just like a nice little town.
Did your kids do any sports or clubs?
Many which?
Your kids, did they do sports or were they in clubs?
Judy was in the swim class. She'd be able to tell you about that. She did swimming. Janet didn't, and I don't think Kathy did. They were more into other activities than sport. They weren't. Judy was sports minded. You were in the swim class, swim group. What else?
Baseball.
Who?
Played a little
Baseball.
baseball.
You played softball too. Yeah.
Not very well. Basketball in the basement of the gym in Wells Street School.
Yeah. Anybody else? Did the other two didn't get into sports at all?
No.
No. But what did Janet and...
Well, we did theater all the time,
Oh,
right?
theater, of course. We got going at the Theater Aurora, and Kathy would fall asleep you have to take her to the theater, and even when she was a little baby, and put her in a bench in the little theater at that point, and that's where she'd sleep half the night, and so it was. Yeah, Theater Aurora was the big thing that we got going and at here. I think it was. It's fun, and I think it's been worthwhile. I hope it's been worthwhile for
Did you
people.
talk about the volunteer fire department?
Volunteer fire. Oh, just a minute now. You mean the Battle of Larmont Street?
Apparently. Go ahead.
Well, if I can remember it now, it was a volunteer fire department, and everybody got together in the armories. That's where the gathering place was for the armories and the volunteer fire department and the volunteer army group. There was a captain in the reserves. He used to come down from he lived in Newmarket, but he was part of the Aurora group. And oh dear, I hadn't thought about them. How did we get onto Larmont?
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know this story. I just know that because
I don't,
they were,
Ron. I've forgotten how it started, but it was well, of course, when they called out the militia for this because of this strange happening in Aurora, and of course the militia kids didn't know all the people in the town, and Ron and somebody else, the mayor, I guess, started up Larmont Street to the armories to get this under control and stop it. And here's this young guy with a gun from the reserve saying, "Stop!"
I don't know what they were arguing about.
He wouldn't let them through. It was an exciting night. We finally convinced them. That we were in the right place at the right time. But anyway.
I don't remember the story.
What else? I don't know of anything. Well, you got some questions.
Can you tell me about the book you wrote about Aurora's history?
About the which?
Aurora's history?
Well, I think you're best to get the book and read about it.
Why did you write it? You wrote it because of the centennial, right?
Oh, well, yeah, because in 1963, centennial of the country.
No, of the town.
And, well, yeah, that's, country wasn't until 67. 63, centennial of the formation of the town. And there was nothing here to indicate that. There was no written word, there was nothing. So Jim Johnson, who owned the newspaper at that time, Dr. Johnson, he said, well, we'll have to do something about that. So he went back and took the newspaper files, and within 3 days wrote a history of Aurora. He went through all these files and put all this stuff together, and we published the book. And by the time it was time for the centennial celebrations, we had a book with the history of Aurora, and it was done pretty quickly and pretty off the cuff, but we did it. Now, by 67, he had sold the paper and moved away. So what I had done between 63 and 67 is keep notes of all the people who came in from around the area and said, that story about my family isn't right. It should be this, this, and this. So I had all these extra stories and things to add to it or change or things. So we did a lot of that. And by 67, we put out another one. That was the one with the blue cover, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The original one had a yellow cover.
Yeah. I'll see what I can find.
Yeah.
Jessica.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the history. People should read it. I can't. I'm not going to try and give you a history. That doesn't work very well.
No.
58. I could try a few days, but that's not very good. You're best to get the book. They're two different books, not much different from one from the other, and read them and put stuff in your history from those books.
Okay. How did Aurora change from 1963 to 1967?
Well, they built a subdivision. It
just was great. It just grew. It just grew, I think.
Yeah, it just grew. The first part of the shopping center at the south end of town came along.
When did Sterling come in? Sterling Drug. Well, Sterling Drug. When did they do that whole thing?
Oh, that one. Yeah, to bring a lot of jobs. There were no jobs in town for anybody. So, but Sterling Drug needed a location, and they came into town and they built a plant at the south end of town. It started out not too big a plant. They added on considerably to it, and at one time it Sterling Drug had a lot of employees. I drove by there the other day and the whole thing's gone.
Well, yeah, you can see from your apartment it's not there. They tore it
I
down
can see from my balcony now that
it's not there anymore.
there's no building, no nothing. It's just field.
But they were right across.
But they were the ones that Sterling Drug that brought the first. A lot of those people came from the Windsor area because that's where the drug companies were located, and Sterling Drug wanted to. Why did they move up here?
It seemed like a good idea at the time. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know why. Why they didn't
say when you worked at the dairy, you went over there. Didn't you and Don Glass make it?
Yeah, Don Glass and I, we were at the dairy, and these people from Sterling, from Windsor area, arrived and showed them around, and
they said they needed they were going to have a cafeteria, and you're like, oh well, we can do the dairy.
Yeah. So, anyway, that's about it.
Okay. What was the Aurora Horse Show like?
What was the Aurora Horse Show like? It was the best horse show in Canada. It was top notch. The members of the Olympic team were all part of the Aurora Horse Show group. And it stayed like that until They all lived in this area. Tom Gayford and Jim. Oh heavens! I wish I'd thought you were going to ask me these questions.
Jim Day.
Pardon?
Jim Day.
Well, he was in the, sort. He was one of their. He was the second generation. Like he wasn't one of the original four. He was a young fellow who learned from them and became top writer. But he wasn't one of the original four. I'm just trying to think what their names were. I'm sorry. I just remember at the moment Tom Gayford.
Jimmy Elder, Jimmy Day.
What's she saying?
Jim Elder, Jim Day, Jim Elder.
Oh, Jim Elder. Yes, the Elders.
Jim Day.
Jim Day, but there was.
You were right about the first one. What did you say?
Tom Gayford.
Gayford. Yeah.
But there's more
Miller.
than that. I'm sorry.
Anyway.
And you took pictures there?
I would.
You took pictures there for the paper?
Oh yeah, but they're all in the. Well, maybe they're in the dump now. They were all newspaper pictures, and I took picture after picture after picture, and they're somewhere in the old newspaper files, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have them.
Can you tell us about the Aurora Drama Workshop?
Yes.
Oh, did you tell her now?
Oh, you want me to talk about it?
Yeah.
There was a woman called Maggie Bassett, Mrs. Bassett, and her husband had a plumbing business in Newmarket. They lived outside town, and there was my husband Tim and Maggie and who were those other people?
The Millers, Kay and Tony Miller.
Tony Miller, that's it. He was a British actor. So he had some theater experience, and Thelma Rickson was an actress, and we had that. There's a little garage at the foot of Temperance Street Hill. You don't know the town, so it's no good me saying this.
We know a bit of it.
Down the bottom of the hill, there's a garage there now with garage doors and things, and this was it's the north side of the creek if you're going to look for it. Mm-hmm. And there was a loading dock at one end where the Carusos brought in the fruit and things. Frank Caruso would go to Toronto every morning at 4:00. He'd leave for Toronto and bring back the produce, and he'd unload it. And so that's where they unloaded it, up there. But then that was
the stage.
This high. And so they stopped using it for that, and we started using it as a theater. And this was the stage that was about 4 feet high, and the rest of it we used as
and about 10 feet deep.
And we got chairs. And
sat the anniversary of Aurora in 1963.
Oh, I told you about my dress falling down.
Yeah.
You want to repeat it for the camera?
Well, in 1963, it was the centennial of the formation of Aurora as a community. I'd have to look that up. I think it was incorporated as a village.
And it had something to do with the train. The steam train came through.
Oh, 53 was the train. Okay. Crawford Rose. 53, Aurora was head of rail. There was no railway north of Aurora.
That was it.
And so it was, you'll find pictures of that somewhere. And then...
So 63 was really the town.
Yeah, so, but yeah, when the people started to move in, they didn't, if there was no railway, it was practically impossible to get here. before the railway came.
Mhm.
So then they built that railway, the stupid railway from Hamilton to. It was a silly. Well, somebody had an idea that Hamilton was going, as the head of the lake, was really going to be the important
Right.
place because it was head of the lakes. There were two rivers running into it, and so that's where that
They
railway.
were wrong.
They were wrong.
They were wrong.
But anyway, they started building a railway in Toronto years after that one. But and anyway, it came up to Aurora by 1863,
Yeah.
I think. Oh, my memory's not very good.
Yeah, well, there's a lot in there. That's why there's no room for.
Oh, is
everything.
that? Well, that's a wonderful excuse.
Yeah, that's it.
Now, have you got your next question?
Do you have any other funny stories you'd like to share?
What about the story about the guy who ran the men's clothing store who took the calls for the fire? You remember Chet Osborne?
Yeah.
Yeah, and apparently he would take the call for a fire. Then the truck would come and come all the way down and around the corner and pick him up on the way because he was the one who took the calls at his store.
The phone for the fire department was in Osborne's apartment, and they had a men's clothing store. What's there now? Just south of the main corner, anyway. Mm-hmm. And they had the men's. So as soon as the fire phone would go, Chet would get his stuff on, and he'd get out there, and they'd get the call out to everybody.
Yeah. Well, the siren would go. There was a siren in town.
Yeah, the town siren, of course.
It would blow like crazy.
I'm looking at a picture of it right behind you.
Okay.
And the red one, and the
Yeah.
yeah.
So the siren would go, and then
people would come, and the truck was
down Wells Street and around
there, and it would go around the block and come up and pick up Chet on the corner, and then start picking up the other fire people on the way.
If you were watching a softball game, and when I was like 10,
Yeah.
watching a softball game and the siren went, the team was gone. Because they were all volunteer firemen. They'd run around the corner. They'd run down the street around the corner from the park down to the fire station.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah, well it was all volunteer.
Yeah.
All volunteer
Exciting
fire.
time.
Anything else?
I don't think that's it. Unless you can.
Is that all you've got?
Yep. Unless you know any other stories you'd like to share.
I mean,
I'm sure she'll think of 100
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
after. That's
yeah,
fine.
but
I understand.
I don't know. Judy says I've never been in this house before.
I thought you had. One thing I remembered when we were upstairs, 1963 Centennial. Who was Miss Aurora?
Oh, Lynn
Hillary.
Lynn
was Miss
Hillary,
Aurora.
who grew up in this house. Well, she was Miss Aurora in the centennial.
Yeah, she was riding on the car, wearing the sash.
We had a. Yeah.
She was my babysitter, so that's how. Sometimes we would come here, and sometimes we'd go to the farm out on Vandorf.
Yeah, because they had a farm at Vandorf.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're still there.
Yeah. So, I don't remember a lot about that farmhouse, a few things, but I was quite young. I was only 4 or 5.
Okay, yeah, I guess that's it.